When Emma finally awoke from her 6-year coma, the air in the hospital room was thick with tension. Her family had feared she might never regain consciousness, yet Ryan, her devoted boyfriend, had always clung to hope. As one of the first people she saw, he felt a rush of relief, until he noticed the fury etched on her face. Ryan had just entered Emma's room, having been informed by the doctors that her awakening was imminent. Anxiety gripped him as he considered how she would react to seeing him. Would she remember their shared past? Would she blame him for her condition? As her eyes fluttered open, Ryan recalled stories of patients who could hear while in a coma. The thought made him even more anxious. Emma's gaze swept across the room until it locked onto his. In an instant, her expression shifted, and anger replaced the confusion. Ryan's heart sank. His worst fears seemed to materialize. Did she know something he didn't? Had she overheard something during her unconsciousness, or was there another reason for her intense reaction? The uncertainty loomed large, casting a shadow over what was meant to be a joyful reunion. Emma and Ryan had been together for 2.5 years, and they were not an ordinary couple. They weren't living under the same roof yet, but they were starting to talk about it. They were only 19 and 21, respectively, at the time, so they were in no rush. They were just enjoying their time together. However, Emma and Ryan weren't prepared for the consequences of some of their actions. They loved to do extreme sports together and lived many potentially dangerous and sometimes even deadly adventures. They were both out of college and earning their own money full-time, so they could spend whatever they wanted on their wild travels. They always tried to up the ante. Together, they went mountaineering, skydiving, and even dove in shark cages to get closer to the great white sharks. For Emma and Ryan, life couldn't be exciting enough. But not everyone was as thrilled about their lifestyle as the couple themselves. Their parents hated that they put themselves in danger like this and had spoken out against it many times in the past. However, the couple didn't care about anyone's opinion on the matter. Nothing had really gone wrong yet. They felt invincible. But that feeling would unfortunately not last. Emma and Ryan lived for adventure, often seeking thrills in their daily routines. They would free run through the bustling city center or tackle rugged mountain biking trails on the outskirts of town. However, during one of their familiar rides, tragedy struck. The couple chose a path they had traversed countless times before, expecting a straightforward bike ride that would serve as good cardio without much challenge. But familiarity can breed complacency, and that day, Emma and Ryan let their guard down. As Emma rode ahead, Ryan followed closely behind. Suddenly, a rabbit darted across the path just a few feet in front of Emma, paralyzing her with fear. In a split second, she swerved to avoid it, but miscalculated her direction, veering off into the dense woods. The impact with the tree was catastrophic. She was thrown from her bike and hit the ground hard, striking her head. Cyclists know the risks of the wild, yet Emma and Ryan had been overconfident, neglecting to wear helmets. Ryan rushed to her side, panic rising as he found her unconscious but still breathing. He grabbed his phone to call for help, but deep in the forest, cell service was unreliable. After several attempts, he finally reached emergency services, only to learn that help couldn't reach them quickly. Realizing he had to act, Ryan hoisted Emma into his arms and ran toward the forest's edge, fueled by adrenaline and fear. He carried her for nearly 15 minutes, focused solely on getting her to safety. When he finally reached the ambulance, paramedics sprang into action. They stabilized Emma during the ride to the hospital, but the news that awaited Ryan was devastating. Emma had fallen into a coma, and there was no telling when or if she would wake up. They could already tell Ryan, from experience, that they could keep Emma alive in the hospital, but they couldn't wake her up without risking serious complications. Ryan was stunned. The first thing he did was call Emma's parents. The news was met with histrionic tears from her mother and anger from her father, anger aimed at him. Her father blamed Ryan for putting his daughter in danger by doing this and told him that he had always warned them that something like this would happen one day. They immediately came to the hospital to see their daughter. When Emma's parents arrived at the hospital and saw Ryan waiting outside her room, their anxiety began to ease. Her father expressed regret for his earlier outburst, acknowledging that Ryan was not to blame for the situation. Just then, a doctor stepped out of Emma's room. They could see her lying there, connected to various machines, perfectly stable. However, the doctor cautioned them that they shouldn't expect any immediate reactions, as Emma was still in a deep coma. Entering the room brought tears to their eyes. Emma lay on her back, eyes closed, her forehead swollen from the impact, and her arms bore visible scratches. Ryan and Emma's parents sat by her bedside for what felt like an eternity, speaking softly to her, hoping for a sign of recognition, but there was none. Eventually, the doctor returned, gently urging them to go home and rest, assuring them that Emma was in good hands. He explained that the timeline for her recovery was uncertain. Some patients awakened after days, while others remained in comas for decades. Ryan drove home, just a 15-minute ride from the hospital, accompanied by Emma's parents. They discussed the events that had transpired and contemplated their next steps. Although they felt powerless, they understood that waiting was all they could do. Ryan had planned to return to work the following day, but he decided to take the week off to remain by Emma's side. This time would also allow him to reflect on what lay ahead for him. He and Emma had often talked about their plans in case of emergencies, agreeing that they would want the other to move on if something happened. But now, faced with the reality of her condition, Ryan felt conflicted. Leaving Emma seemed unimaginable. She was the love of his life. The promises they made early in their relationship felt naive in the face of such profound uncertainty. He couldn't fathom betraying her memory or the life they had built together. Ultimately, Ryan made a resolute decision. He would stand by Emma. He couldn't envision a future without her, and waiting seemed the least he could do. The days turned into weeks as he spent countless hours in the hospital, hoping for any sign of improvement. During this time, he grew closer to Emma's parents, sharing in their grief and hope. However, the constant hospital visits began to take a toll on Ryan's life. He found himself neglecting the activities he and Emma once cherished. Adventures and extreme vacations became distant memories. His weeks were consumed with work and hospital visits, with rare outings to see friends. Ryan often shared his experiences with Emma, not expecting a response, but wanting her to know he was still there for her. Emma's parents, however, had a different perspective. They encouraged Ryan to resume his passions and not let his life stagnate in the hospital. They appreciated his loyalty but believed he could still honor Emma while living his life. Their encouragement sparked a shift in Ryan's mindset. After much contemplation, Ryan decided to heed their advice. He planned a hiking trip abroad with a close friend, hoping to reconnect with his adventurous spirit, yet lingering doubts clouded his excitement. Although he was eager to embark on this journey, he found himself gravitating towards running in the city rather than mountain biking. This new activity introduced him to a broader circle of people, including a girl who had caught his attention in the past. Ryan had noticed her watching him while he was free riding with Emma. Now, with Emma absent, the girl approached him, striking up a conversation. Her intentions were clear. She was interested in Ryan, unaware of the gravity of his situation, and likely assuming he was single. Ryan wasn't sure what to think of her advances at first, but he quickly made up his mind. Although Ryan had to admit that he found this girl very attractive, he didn't find it difficult at all to refuse her advances. By then, it was clear to him that he had made the right decision in remaining loyal to Emma, but this realization did not happen overnight. For Ryan, it wasn't what he wanted. He wasn't interested in anyone other than Emma, and even his hobbies just weren't the same. He was so used to doing all these activities with her, and now being around other people didn't suit him. This allowed him to validate his decision to put everything on hold. But was it really the right decision? By now, more than 5.5 years had passed without any response from Emma, and Ryan and Emma's parents were starting to lose more and more hope. The doctors also seemed to have made it clear to them for a while, but now they had finally started to accept reality. However, something amazing happened during a daily reaction test. Emma showed very slight movement, which appeared to be a reaction to the test. The doctor tried several more times, and on the 4th attempt, it happened again. He immediately called Ryan. Ryan was overjoyed at the progress Emma was showing, but the doctor cautioned him not to get too carried away. While her reactions were promising, there was no guarantee that she would wake up soon, or at all. Still, this was a sign of hope, and if her responses continued to improve, it could begin to envision a brighter future. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma's reactions to stimuli became more frequent and pronounced. Each test yielded encouraging results, and the medical team grew increasingly optimistic. Was there finally a real glimmer of hope? Ryan spent nearly every waking moment by Emma's side in the hospital. It had been 6 long years since he had heard her voice or gazed into her beautiful blue eyes. The anticipation of their reunion was overwhelming, though Ryan could never have predicted how it would unfold. 6 weeks after her initial response, the moment finally arrived. Emma opened her eyes. Ryan was in the room, having just been left alone by her parents. The nurse quickly alerted them, and tears of joy streamed down Ryan's face as he saw Emma's dazed expression. He began to gently explain everything, taking care to be patient, as it was clear she was weak. Slowly, Emma started to remember, first who Ryan was, and she seemed pleased to see him. For Emma, it felt as if no time had passed. She had simply closed her eyes and awoken to find him there. However, when Ryan told her she had been in a coma for 6 years, her surprise morphed into anger. As she processed this shocking reality, she became furious with Ryan for waiting all that time, feeling guilty for taking those years from him. Ryan, taken aback, simply gazed into her eyes before kissing her. Emma hesitated for a moment but then hugged him tightly, tears flowing. When her parents arrived, they found the two still embraced, both crying. Emma's anger faded. She was grateful Ryan had waited for her. Ryan never regretted his decision for a single moment. Emma made a full recovery, and the couple found joy in returning to their adventurous lifestyle together, stronger than ever.